Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I'd like to talk about some commonly used instances of bad coding. And I have three of them laid out here. The first one, you notice if I say I have the start an event when MBOT starts up, then I have our event loop. In there I have if 50 equals 50. Now 50 is always going to be equal 50. So the problem with this if else statement is the else never will happen and you will never see the color red. And you're sitting there thinking, well, this is rather obvious that 50 is 50. How would we have this problem? Well, sometimes it's a little more subtle than that. For example, suppose I had a variable called a. Okay, and somewhere here at the start, before here, I set a equal to. I set it a equal to the distance. Okay, so if right here I turn around and I say if a equals the distance, it's going to be the same thing because it hasn't changed in that brief period of time. Because what has happened is the robot hasn't moved between these two, so the distance hasn't changed. So I essentially have 50 equals 50 or 40 equals 40 or whatever the distance is. And what happens is this happens when you start to do something and you forget to kind of follow through with it. Like say I meant to set a variable here, then I meant to check it to see if it changed. Well, if I didn't do anything between here that moved the robot, then it's going to always be the same, and you will never get this color red. So that's one instance of bad coding. And that's if you have an if-then-else statements where the else never happens. Well, sometimes you have the opposite where you have an if-then-else statement where the if never happens. Okay, 40 is never going to be greater than 50. So you will never get a green light here. And you may be saying to yourself, well, how could you have something like that happen? Well, going back to my ultrasonic sensor, if I say I want to turn it green if it's greater than 500 centimeters. Well, that looks fine, but the problem is that the ultrasonic sensor doesn't read anything over 400 centimeters, so it's never going to be greater than 500 centimeters, so your light's going to be red all the time. So that's the case where the else statement is always true and you never get into the if statement. And this is how it happens, what happens is this is a limitation of the ultrasonic sensor. Okay, that's 2 out of the 3. The other problem you have is when you start whaling away at the code and you just keep on adding and bolting things onto it, when sometimes you just need to kind of start all over. Now what happened here was when the bot started up, we had our event loop. Then the first part of the specification says if the sensor port, let me fix this real quick. If the sensor port, it says that it's greater than 20 centimeters, say green for go and move us ahead full power. Okay, well and good. Then I read the second part of it. It said, well, if it's less than 20, make it yellow. Well, I put that in there and move it at 50% power. Now I'll get into what I did with this in a minute. Then it says if it's less than 5, have it show red and then stop moving. Now what happens if you actually run this code, one of the problems is that it will show yellow, then it will show red, and it may be a little bit slow to stop because it's going all the way through here. So what happened is, like some people do, I said, well, let me press the on board button here to check for 20. Okay, well that will show you the color yellow, but the problem is that if you still have it in here, you have the on board button still pushed in when you're trying to move the bot. So we stuck a if loop here saying, well, if I've released it, then move forward. So what had to happen at this point is we got a logical mess, and we actually need to go in and clean it up. So sometimes if you have this many stacked if statements and you just keep on bolting things onto it to make it work, and you get this to work but something else is a problem, sometimes you got to do this. Okay, to end on a positive note, let's see if we can do a little better job of programming that. Alright, we'll start with our mbot. We'll have our event loop. Okay, and then I'm going to do an if then else, because the first thing we want to do is say, and I'm going to do an operator, I'm going to say greater than 50, it's actually greater, we want greater than 20 when we want to give it the green light and have it go. Okay, sensing, ultrasonic center. If the ultrasonic center says it's greater than 20 centimeters, then give it the green light. Okay, and let's have it move ahead. Let's just say 50%. Let's not go for at full power yet. Okay, so now if it's less than 20 centimeters, there's an additional thing that if it's less than 5 centimeters, I want it to stop. So I'll do another if then else. Actually, yes. And I'll do my operator. This time I want it less, and I'll just go ahead and say less than 5, stop it. Okay, now 5 centimeters. If it's less than 5 centimeters, give it the red light. Then stop moving. Okay, otherwise I wanted to give it the yellow light. I want it to move a little more slowly. And we'll say 25% power. Okay, I do have some nested if loops in here, but you don't have a lot of ifs stacked up in place, and the flow is just better. Now, I will download this to the robot and see what happens to it. So the next thing we'll see is the robot in action. Thank you for your attention.